Hey guys, NJ here, and we're having a look today at a couple of new frames. These were sent to me by the company Atto, and these are a brand new frame that have just come to market. The two that I have to look at is this one, which is the 136R. As you guys know, I absolutely adore my 130, so I was very excited when I was offered the chance to have a look at this. Coming at 136, so a little bit bigger, but still a great, nice miniature quad. And then the other one is the Atto X210, which is more for the traditional 5-inch prop size frame. So we'll have a look at that one shortly. Let's have a quick look at the 136R and see what comes in the kit. Now, in terms of the layout of this base plate, it is in an X configuration, though the geometry is probably closer to that of the Dead Cat layout, where these arms do extend out a little further at the front here, and I think it does seem like in the case of this one that just gives the props a little more clearance for the camera should you want to mount a full-size 1177 on the front. And I'm, that's probably the biggest thing for me on a 130. It's kind of in the smaller size. It's the smallest size of quad that I find flies as really as great and as big as the larger quads do, but it's really important that 1177 is there, because the smaller CMOS cameras just don't really cut it for me in all the different lighting conditions. So I'm really glad that they've accommodated that. In the case of this frame, if I just pull this out so we can have a closer look, you can see this is done by actually using this style of mount, one that will come in your kit with your 1177 camera. So that the idea is to be able to mount that up front, angle the camera, and then, as I said, if I just put this kind of straight down, you can see there is these arms just come out a little bit further so that the props can clear that camera sitting right there. So yeah, that's a little bit about the layout. You can see the hole pattern here. There's actually accommodation here for both sizes of flight control board out of the two kind of popular flight control board sizes, and an adapter plate to go with it. Now, the nice thing by allowing use of this adapter plate is that you can still build the stack out to the larger corners, which will structurally make things nice and strong as you build the top pod straight up. But it also means you can mix and match here. If you wanted to use something light and really versatile and excellent, like the Pico BLX, which I think is a fantastic kind of micro flight controller, you could run something like that. If you wanted to mix that, for instance, you wanted to use that as your main flight controller, but then you wanted to use something like this, which is a Diatone SP2 as your VTX, you could actually mix those two things together because you've got the hole patterns for both. So it's really nice that there is the option to be able to mix and match using a combination of this top plate and the hole pattern that's laid out. And I think that really is in the spirit of these kits. There's a lot of flexibility here. Furthering that idea, you can see there are actually two options of top plate as well. The main lower plate appears to be 3mm. I did have a quick check with the calipers on that, and then they also have a 3mm top plate, which is this guy here. Let me just double check that the top plate is 3mm. I'm kind of pretty sure it is. Yeah, 3.1. So we've got a real tank top plate here, should you want to build a kind of smasher stroke freestyle machine to be able to take any kind of abuse, which you can mount as your top plate, and there's a hole there for an SMA or RPSMA mount should you want to go that route. Or if you don't want to go that way and you wanted to build a race frame, we've got this option here, which is a 1.5mm, much lighter, much thinner plate, and this time with what looks like zip ties, so that you can actually zip tie your SMA this way and have the antenna coming straight out the back. So it's really, I think that's actually a really cool thing that they've done there by offering a couple of different options as to how you want to mount this up. You're probably wondering what these guys are at the back here. What we've actually got You can either use this as extra protection to put on the lower underneath the main frame there, or you could use it on the top should you want to raise your motors slightly higher. It might be that you want, if you're very particular about getting your props level with your flight controller, etc., or you just want a little bit of extra protection on the bottom, or some way to rise it off the ground a little bit. There are options for using that too. So there's some really nice little extras in here. There's also included, you can see off to the right here, some nice lightweight prop nuts. I currently use a set of these on my 130 instead of the enormous ones that Emax provided with their 4000 kV red bottom motors, and they really help on the smaller motors where it's very easy to over prop the motors. Having nice lightweight prop nuts like this is a real bonus, and that's really a part of the bigger picture. As well as going for a lighter pitch prop on a high kV like a 4000 kV, having a light pitch and the lightweight nuts will all help, and that's really worked out for me on my other 130. So it's really nice that those are included. And then an absolute assortment of these kind of knurled standoffs in these really quite fetching colours, this kind of goldy colour here, and they're all different sizes. So again, what I really like about this is it just gives you build options by having all these different sizes, and then we've got the two other smaller sizes over here. It means you can really customise the build stack to only be as high as it needs to be, and you of course have these longer screws here for building the actual flight stack. So yeah, it's all in all, I think that's a really neat little kit, and I really like the idea that they've done here of just giving you plenty of options in terms of how you build this thing up. Now I am going to do a bit of a build video on this once I get the parts, and then we will take this out and give it a good testing and see how it gets on. But so far I'm really liking the way this looks and builds up. Another thing to note is that they also include a little XT30 connector here, and I think the XT30 is absolutely bang on in terms of what's needed, rated for the amount of current you'll be pulling on something that weighs almost nothing as these 130s do. There really isn't any need to be putting a chunky XT60 on here at all. The only reason you may want to do that is if you already have a bunch of 850 milliamp batteries that have got XT60s on them, but really the XT30 is plenty in terms of current draw. You won't have any issues at all doing that, so great that they include one of those in the kit. The other thing in the corner here, they actually give you a little carbon, try and pull this out, a little carbon wrench in there, which is quite neat. Your 136, if you're building up this kit, will probably look different to anyone else's that are also building up the same kit because of these configuration options. So yeah, very nice. And here we are with the X210, and you can see here we have that same kind of thing where we have different top plate designs for different functions really in terms of how you want to build this. And there's actually three options in this case. We have a top plate, which I guess will again trying to be lightweight, perhaps more for that race style frame where you're really trying to get the weight down as much as possible. We have the much thicker top plate as we do over here, and you can see, yeah, that's pretty thick indeed. Let's just see what that's coming in at. So 3.2 mil in terms of the thickness of that top plate, which is, that's real tank stuff in terms of a top plate. And then we also have here a third section. Now this can either be used on its own. This is the same kind of thickness, 3.1, and this one can either be used, as I said, on its own as a really tiny top plate with plenty of clearance for whatever camera you want to use up the front. If you don't want any specific top protection, you can go with that for an ultralight setup, or this can be used in combination with either of these other top plates, whether you use the thin one or the much thicker one, as a way to extend that top plate if you wanted, like so. So if you wanted more build space, you could actually bolt through here and have an extension extension section, and it does appear to me that on the lower plate this will actually line up with some of the bolt patterns there as well, so you could even use it on the lower deck to give you some more build space. So that's quite a nice little flexible option. It's a top plate in its own right, and it's also an extension plate if you want to extend either the race top plate, the thicker top plate, or even the upper of the lower plate section. So again, just lots and lots of configuration options for how this thing can build up. We also have the same thing with these nice lightweight locking top nuts. For the motors, we have these plastic sections, and this is probably easier to describe how these will work once we put that into the build. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll actually just assemble this one, just put a friction fit together so we can have a look at how this is going to be, or how it's going to look once it's built up. Same as before, you've got a really nice comprehensive set of hardware in here, some nice coloured screws as well. You can see the standoffs here. These are really nice, these kind of tapered standoffs with the knurled edges. So there are 3 main standoffs in this one. So this, again, for lightweight but structurally strong, have gone for a kind of 3 pattern in a triangle rather than using 4 corner posts. So yeah, and you've also got, just as with the other kit, this adapter plate. So again, if there's any particular board that you're absolutely in love with that happens to be on the smaller scale, you could put that in, or you could just use this as a protection top plate for your flight stack or somewhere else to mount other things like a VTX or receiver. Again, I'm just really liking the fact that there are so many options here, so many ways to build one quad, so that's a really cool thing. So let's just put this one together in a friction fit way, so at least we can see how this will go together. 10 points, who recognises these arms? So these are the old ZMR 250 arms. These are definitely going to be 4mm, I think. These feel pretty thick to me. Where are we? Yeah, bang on. So we got some 4mm ZMR 250 arms, and you know, ZMR 250 arms, loads of places you can get those. So yeah, obviously a kit that's designed to work with a fairly easy to get and widely found arm that will work in a modular way with those. And you can see we've got some little holes here for putting rip ties through and keeping down cables and bits. So yeah, very interesting indeed. Okay, let's put it together and just have a quick look at how this all builds up. So we have the lower plate in place, we have the arms, the ZMR arms on top, and then we have these kind of printed spacers that go on here, and these channels that are cut out are so that the bolt head isn't interfered with when the stack goes on like so, and then this is where the posts and the actual flight stack is built up from. So there we are, built up in our kind of base configuration there with the, I guess what we call that, the middle plate, or the race plate if you were going to go for just this smaller top plate, but without the really tiny top plate here, and that is coming in an all-up weight of 93 grams, which is very respectable. In terms of how tough this feels, it certainly feels incredibly strong, built up the way it is, and you can see there's plenty of height in there to fit all your components and electronics and build that up exactly as you would like. If we were to add the reinforcement plate into the equation, if you wanted to do so, that would bring you in at 98 grams, so we're still under that kind of 100 gram benchmark that most of them seem to fall at. So here's another configuration option, and if I just leave the scales alone, you can see that's still around that 100 gram mark. We're now at 97 grams with this plate, and this time I've mounted it down at the lower point, so you can see that's another way you could have this configured if you wanted extra mounting options. Obviously that would become a lot stiffer once you start adding in the various spacers and bits to compress all that down, and it's got support off those lower bolts as well, so that's actually going to be very rigid when it's in place. So you can either have it there, or you can have it as a reinforcement part of the top plate, or you can have that on its own as the top plate and sacrifice the top protection if you really want to try another way of doing it. To go even lighter still, There really are many options, and then as has been suggested, you could also use it as a way to extend the top plate. So when this is on, you could either mount this off of this point to actually bring the top plate out further. Yeah, there are just loads and loads of options, and I really like the fact that this is the first one that I've seen that is really quite so modular. So if you want a very flexible frame, it's a very clever idea. Of course, these being the ZMR arms, you could quite easily replace these, or instead of ordering the 5-inch ZMR arms, you could order the 6-inch ZMR arms. But I know John, the designer, has certainly built this with up to 6S in mind in terms of its how structurally strong it is, and I must say it does feel like a real tank. So as far as I'm concerned, I think this is a really nice option that will suit certain people. There are people out there that really like having flexible options in terms of how you can build these things up, and this frame is definitely not short of options. So there it is, there's the Atto X210. As I said, I will be doing a build video on the 136R once the parts arrive for that, and then we can go out and give that a good thrashing and see how that does. But some real nice little innovative designs here, so thanks to the guys at Atto for sending that over to me, and of course there will be links in the descriptions if this is something that you're interested in and you'd like to know where to get it. So I hope you enjoyed that. There's something a little different for you to see, and stay tuned, more to come.